In the good old days, a couple of years ago, the Japanese manufacturers focused on the 600cc class in the forms of the Honda CBR 600, Kawasaki ZX6, Suzuki's GSX6, as well as Yamaha R6. And every 2 years they brought out a new bike. However, with the advent and technology advances of anti-wheelie, traction control, and ABS, it's even possible for beginners and novices to enjoy 1000cc and 1100cc, the liter class bikes. However, Aprilia with the RS660 revitalized that class, and they brought lighter, nimbler sophistication and technology into the class. The concept of the RS660 Aprilia was first shown to the public at the EICMA 2018 Motor Show. And now finally in 2021, we have the first bikes in South Africa. And in a previous episode, we showed you the uncrating as well as the live launch in the country. Now, there's been many videos on the handling and the rideability of this bike, but we want to, in this episode, focus on what makes this bike so special. Why is it so awesome to ride? And I think it's quite appropriate to mention here that they used the concept of what Collin Chapmans said. Now, Collin Chapmans is one of the most iconic and famous designers in Formula One, also the head of Lotus. And I mean, if it works for Formula One, it'll work for MotoGP as well as to day-to-day riding on bikes. And what Collin Chapmans said is, light is right. And on that, Aprilia designers focused on the smallest of details to make this bike light, so it's nimble and handles like a champion. And let's go through a few of those items where they did focus on weight saving, starting with the front and back wheels, light forged wheels. On this particular color scheme, the Apex Black, you'll see the front wheel is red, the back rim is black, and being light forged, the front wheel only weighs 3.5 kilograms, the back wheel weighs about 5.4 kilograms. The weight saving goes down to the subframe on this bike. It's 16 mil slimmer than the bigger brother RSV and only weighs 1.98 kilogram, yet is strong enough to hold your pillion rider. Even the number plate holder and indicators and lights at the back is a very light plastic with a carbon fiber core in it, only weighing 210 grams. Also, if you look down at the bottom, traditionally you have these big silencer cans on the side, which adds weight. Aprilia managed to get this particular exhaust passed through the Euro emissions 5, and you will see it's really good for low center of gravity, and the whole exhaust weighs 6.2 kilograms. Now the weight saving goes right down to the battery, where they've used a lithium battery on this bike. Lastly, let's have a look at the cosmetics of the bike. The lighting is full LED, and the front they kept with the bigger siblings 3 headlights. However, they very cleverly brought in the furrowed eyebrow daytime riding lights up, and very unique, and I'm sure will be iconic in a few years to come. Then going to the backlight, also LED. When you're following this bike, you will definitely know what bike this is just by looking at the rear lights. Having a look at the rear swing arm, that banana curve type was first seen on the RS250s, and the reason it was brought out in a curved swing arm like that, because at the bottom they had the exhaust expansion boxes tucked in, which gave you good ground clearance for handling on the bike and lean angle. Now that was carried through even to the RS125s in the early 2010s. Looking at the exhaust, that was also seen first on the RS4 back in 2013, just on one side. Also, every time you look at this bike, you see new angles and new things you haven't seen before, like at the back seat over here, it looks like little winglets. That brings me to the front fairing, which is actually a double fairing, and I didn't see it at first glance, but if you look carefully, it looks like it has winglets built in, which it has. The reason for those is not like the bigger brother, the RSV, for downforce. On this particular bike, it is to deflect the heat generated by the engine away from the rider, which is actually super effective. Now, going through a couple of specs of this bike, the dry weight of this bike is 169 kilograms, wet weight 183 kilograms. The horsepower of this engine is 100 horsepower with 67 Newton meters. Again, putting that in perspective, the Kawasaki ZX6 only puts out about 70 horsepower, and this 660, 100 horsepower. Newton meters being pretty much the same. Basic specs on this engine, it is half of the RSV motor, a double, parallel, vertical, slightly leaning forward, double overhead cam, and going through a 6-speed gearbox, final drive, chain drive. Having a look at this bike's electronic suite and rider aids, this bike is stacked with everything. On the rider aids, it has slip assist clutch, up and down quick shifter with an auto blip, APRC, the Aprilia performance riding control, the 3-level cornering ABS, 8-level traction control, wheelie control, cruise control, even engine braking management. All presented really nicely on a full color TFT display. And some of the coolest things on this is that you have the 5 rider modes, as you can see on top, in commute in blue. Then you have your dynamic and you have your individual. And on the individual, you can set all your individual functions, such as your engine map, your engine brake, your traction control, your wheelie control, and your anti-lock braking system. Right. Then, besides those 3 modes, you've got 2 more track-focused modes, and they are challenge and time attack. And in that mode, you'll see your speedo is replaced by a lap timer. And on the time attack, you can actually change it to your own specifications as you want, again, on all the engine, brake, etc., traction control, and so on. And your cruise control button actually becomes your traction control setting, as you see at the ATC. The 3 color options on this RS660 model are the Apex Black, as per this, the Lava Red, and the Acid Gold. Now, the only thing left to do is for you to come and test ride this bike, and you will understand why you have this massive smile under your helmet. Please remember to click like and subscribe and follow us to see more.